Hello, ducklings. This is Baxter Christian, welcoming you to episode 1 of TheQuakk. Now, I apologize for the delay, but with the election going on, I figured waiting a week or two would be worth it. Still don't have a camera. I think I have one sourced, but I've been hella busy, so I've really made no effort in getting it, but I'll be sure to follow up with it after this episode. So, on the pilot, I pitched 2 topics that we would potentially cover on this episode, which was laws of society and gender and sexuality. There's still 2 topics that I want to discuss in the future, but the election is too relevant to ignore. We still don't know anything concrete, but we do know that it's far from over. Joining me today to discuss this in some depth is Logan Edge, a friend from high school who actively works for an election PAC called Make Liberty Win. Logan, glad to have you, man.
Dude, thanks for having me, Duck. It's truly an honor, and I'm ready to chop it up with y'all today.
Well, let's do it. Before we get deeper into the discussion, I also want to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day. From the bottom of my heart, I thank everyone that served in one way or another in any of our branches, where the contributions definitely appreciated. And I also want to especially thank our sponsors for this episode, United States Coast Guard Base in Dulac, Louisiana, and Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. So, Logan, it seems that Joe Biden is our president. Are you excited to see this country undergo the change it's been long overdue for?
Dude, I am so excited that racism is finally over. You know, we just elected George W. Bush, basically, so I'm just ready for this progressive change of, more wars, more debt, and more corporate bailouts. Like, great job, Democrats. You should really be proud.
Man, you don't see unification in the country already, man. I was driving down 75 at dusk. I saw fireworks coming over the skyline in Atlanta. It seemed like everyone's, the celebration's well underway. Everyone's joining hands, singing praises together. Finally, it seems like we've given the country that we've been promised for.
Yeah, I mean, that's also funny too, because we always got to remember that Atlanta isn't Georgia and Twitter isn't real life. So there's always hope in this world.
So if Atlanta isn't Georgia, are you saying that the status of Georgia in this election might not be concluded?
Oh, yeah. It might not be concluded. And this is something I would say to all people from left or right, is that to think that the election is just over and you're happy that Joe Biden won, there is legal recourse that is going on, and there's a high possibility that votes are going to be thrown out and recounts might change that outcome. Also, for conservatives, for Trump to win this, it would be truly some 4D chess shit that would never be seen before. So it would be pretty remarkable if he pulled it off. So, some positive and negatives to both sides.
So this is definitely an election that I think is quite historically significant. We haven't seen anything like this before, with the mail-in voting. You would know more than me if that's occurred in the past, but not quite to this scale. So we were interested to see how that would pan out when they pitched that several months ago during the COVID pandemic. I figured that there would be some kind of angle to work in some shiesty shit, but now we're starting to see this unfold. So you have one side, the right is saying that we have this trove of evidence that's saying that there's voter fraud from all across the board, all of these states in question, and then the major media outlets and the left saying that there is not a sliver of evidence of any kind of fraudulent activity, that this is an honest election. How dare you question the integrity of this election?
Yeah.
So 2 polarized sides from 2 extremely polarized parties. Now, where do you think that the claims of each of these parties holds up right now with what we've been given?
Yeah, so rule of thumb, I always like to say the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. When the one side tells you that it is drastic and there is massive amount of evidence, there's probably some truth to that. When you have sworn affidavits and you have people literally putting perjury up for their life if this is wrong, like, people aren't going to do that just for shits and giggles. And 2, like, whenever you have the corporate press and all mainstream leftist organizations coming out and just telling you that there's nothing to see here, there's obviously something going on, because these are the same folks that said that Russia hacked the election. Did they ever give you a description of what they hacked or what they did or what collusion was? Well, no. They grandstanded and used very broad general terms. and basically took 5 years out of our country, finding nothing but people lying to the FBI. So,
and none of those headlines, I take every single one of those headlines with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't indulge the corporate press media at all, but I also understand that they're a puppet spewing from who pumps money into their organizations. So at the end of the day, they're just a puppet controlled by these globalists that want to push this agenda through the media to gain mass control, essentially. So I take all of that with a grain of salt. But like you were saying, where there's smoke, there's definitely fire. So where do you think the biggest source of smoke is right now?
So I would say there's a couple key places to look. Philadelphia is just historically known as a massive political machine. When I say political machine, I'm talking about like Tammany Hall, very corrupt.
You're talking about the Tammany Hall with like Boss Tweed that we learned about back in middle school. Okay, I haven't heard that.
So when I say political machine, I'm literally saying like there is a mechanism of power that corrupts and controls how this how that city works.
Okay.
So, it is very well known. Justice Alito actually came out a couple of days ago and said that they need to separate the ballots that have came in after Election Day. He is from Philadelphia. So, he knows that this is historically just understood that, it's Philadelphia. It's the way things go. Famously also Chicago. They always said, it's the Chicago way.
Right.
So when you're seeing people bring in ballots in the tens of thousands at 4 a.m. in the dark of night, that we all went to bed. I don't know about everybody else, but I went to bed at about 2:33 on election night. Trump was up by 800,000 votes. In the next couple of days, they just kept mysteriously finding ballots out of Philadelphia that cut that lead.
So what were some of the reasons that they either suspended their counting or found an excuse to accept these other votes after deadline? I know Fulton County said some bullshit, like there was a pipe break or something, and they had to close.
Like the polling location.
It just doesn't add up, and you hear other situations similar to this occurring in cities across the country. Now, where would these phantom votes that are appearing at these ballot locations some hours after the proposed deadline, where are these votes said to originate from? Like, were they just storing tens of thousands of ballots at an undisclosed location, or are these tried to be passed as legitimate?
So that's what's really important. So we're going to hear a lot of shit over the next couple of weeks about audits, about recounts. So that whole process is really to validate the votes. So when I say validate the votes, with mail-in ballots, there's a process. Being in college and being on the road, I've only voted absentee. I've never actually voted in person.
So what does that entail? Like, just elaborate on that.
So little things like, when you do your absentee ballot, first of all, you have to apply for it, fill out some information, you get it sent in. It comes in with multiple envelopes. So one envelope that you put your actual ballot in, I don't know if all states are the same, but Georgia is yellow. You sign your name, you swear an oath. So if this is fraudulent, it is a crime. You sign your name, you have to give a certain date, you fill that in another envelope, and then when you mail that out, the post office is supposed to timestamp it. So this is what's important when we're talking about accepting ballots late, because that really shows the poll workers when this ballot arrived. So I don't know the exact parameters, but the Pennsylvania Supreme Court actually just ruled like a couple weeks before the election that they could accept ballots after Election Day.
And how were they able to pass that if it's not constitutional?
Well, that's the thing. Like, when you legislate from the bench, a lot of things get passed that might be, a little sketchy.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, too, why down ballot races are important, because you are voting for judges and you're voting for city commissioners and mayors and stuff like that. And when you are talking about the Supreme Court of the state of, Pennsylvania, those people were elected to that office. So Pennsylvania has been swinging blue. It's more of a blue collar, blue dog Democrat historically. So a lot of these people were voted in to their position by liberals. So when they side in the favor of liberals, it might not be like full on collusion or anything. Like, I'm not going conspiratorial, but I'm saying everybody is ideological. So thinking that nobody is sitting there neutral, we're not really dealing in reality at that case.
So the postal workers and the handlers, the ballot counters that are being accused of fraudulent activity, now do you think that they're being paid off? Oh, well, I definitely think they would have to be getting paid off by someone bigger to risk that kind of, to commit those felonious acts and whatnot. But who do you think is actually paying these people to commit this fraud that they're being accused of? To backstamp these, to backstamp the votes, to throw away Trump votes.
Yeah. So I think some of it might just be malicious. Poll workers, it's kind of a voluntary thing.
I guess it varies depending on the location as well. That's why you saw pictures in Philadelphia, ballot counters wearing Biden masks and different locations boarding up the windows and whatnot and kicking out Republican poll workers.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something like, as somebody that's worked over 12 campaigns, like whenever you work the polls, you're not allowed to have any political wear at all.
No bias. It's an unbiased environment.
Like you can't, I remember talking to a guy, he was pissed that he couldn't go in and vote in a Republican primary with a Trump hat. So I mean,
see, I didn't even know that just the civilian can't walk in with an article.
So like that's a big no-no. That's a big no-no.
Let alone for an actual poll worker, a ballot counter. Yeah, that's isn't that's illegal? Isn't that technically?
Yeah, it is illegal. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, and that's what I want. I have a lot of friends on the left that we might not see eye to eye, and I just don't want y'all's world to be broken if it does go south, because there is a lot of things that are coming up that A, is highly illegal, and B, looks, very suspect, at least.
The thing is, I'm not even, obviously I'm a Trump supporter, I vocalize that, but I'm not so gung-ho about Trump that I wouldn't be willing to acknowledge a legitimate Biden victory. The thing is that there's so many variables in this whole picture that points to fraudulent activity. Like, there's just statistics that can't be ignored. Like, how does Trump outperform himself by, I forgot what number of million votes he exceeded his 2016 election by, but
almost probably around 8.
Okay, I was going to say 7, but it's somewhere around there.
In that rough area.
Right, and the fact that he improved his popularity with the minority vote, the female vote, and even the LGBTQ vote, many different demographics he previously didn't see a lot of success with. This was frantic campaigning. You saw the turnouts, you saw the boat parades, you saw people standing for 5 hours in freezing cold rain and snow to try to wait to see him to have the opportunity to speak, and you just can't make that kind of stuff up. So how does a guy that's campaigned in his basement for the past 8 to 10 months supposedly outvote or outperform Biden and Hillary, or Obama and Hillary Clinton, which people actually had excitement to vote for?
Yeah, that's my thing. I don't necessarily agree with Obama's policies, but as a student of the game, he was a master craftsman. He's
he was slick. He could speak.
Smooth.
Black, sharp. He had. I'm not going to say it was a gimmick, but he had that factor that would make people want to stand behind him. He could generate some kind of excitement.
And he ran a campaign on, it's kind of how campaigns are ran, but you always want to make it very broad for interpretation. So something like hope and change. Well, what hope and change might mean to you might be different than me, but that has broad appeal that everybody can kind of put their own subjective view on it. Same with Make America Great Again. That's kind of why it's divisive, because some people, when they hear that, they just think about, America needs to take its role in the world. We need to become great. Well, what does great necessarily mean to you compared to a liberal, and what does Make America Great when a lot of these people hate America?
Before Joe Biden was even named as the Democratic nominee, I figured that this election was going to be consisting of votes for Donald Trump and votes against Donald Trump. And the people that hate Trump really, really, really hate him. But even with Joe Biden as that figure filling that position, I feel like when they actually hear him talk and some of the allegations that Biden's had thrown his way, that would even deter that bit of Trump hatred a little bit. And even if he was some candidate to get excited for, I still don't think that he would have been able to surpass the numbers that Obama put up in 2008 and 2012. Just no way. And even crooked Hillary, In 2016, we were talking about it earlier before we went live, that people hate Hillary, but she has the woman factor, and she's a crisp cut politician. She can speak, she has good delivery, and that she has some substance that she can back up.
Yeah.
So why do you think that Biden would even be able to generate that kind of excitement to propel him above these numbers that Trump has historically put up?
So I would say just flat out he doesn't. Another thing to really look at is the pick of vice president. Normally you pick a vice president to get another demographic that you might have been worried about. So for instance, Barack Obama picked Joe Biden. He picked Joe Biden for that blue collar union vote up in Pennsylvania, that it's the same reason why they picked Joe Biden this time. That blue collar, white, working class vote. That's what they wanted Joe Biden for. When you look at Mike Pence, they did Mike Pence for Trump because they thought Trump might struggle with evangelicals in the Midwest.
I see.
Right? So they picked Kamala Harris, who I call Officer Harris because she's a cop. But, she didn't even poll above like 6% within the Democratic primary.
Right.
So even within the Democratic base, you're talking about somebody that isn't very popular. And I know the corporate press is swinging all cylinders now, trying to make Kamala Harris look likable. But their own base didn't like Kamala Harris. And I think that's an important aspect to look at as well, because you look at old Sleepy Joe who can't string a sentence together, and then you look at a super, super cynical, I think Kamala Harris is an evil bitch, to be personally honest. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is an uncensored platform.
Okay, my bad. But, you're just looking at somebody that isn't likable within their own base, and then you really are genuinely going to believe that this turned out the most votes in American history? And that's the thing. I think people are just blinded by their hatred for Trump.
Right.
And I'm a libertarian, so I'm not really a big fan of Trump either. But you at least need to be rational in your takes, because when you kind of go down that rabbit hole, you're opening yourself up to be really hurt when it doesn't go your way. You're going to see those people crying in the streets again if Trump pulls this out, and then it's going to be like, well, shit, y'all were, drinking the Kool-Aid.
So since we're talking about Biden and his running mate, Officer Harris, now people all across the board think that this is just some kind of Trojan horse ploy, knowing that Biden is not going to withstand the 4 years that he's projected to have in office. I tentatively say projected because nothing's set in stone. But right now he is the presidential elect. So all across the board, people think that this is a Trojan horse ploy to get Kamala Harris into the position at the chair in the Oval Office. Now, why do you think that would be an advantage for the Democrats? And since you're talking about Kamala not being popular a second ago, I know that she wouldn't have been the front runner, but why could they not have gotten someone younger and more charismatic to fill that chair and not even need to do that Trojan horse?
So I would say there's two ways to look at it. One, the Democrats never really, took their lickings on the 2016 election. They based it all on Russia, and they never really looked in the mirror of why they lost. And that's important. You have to learn from your losses. Sometimes your loss can propel you to your next win, especially in politics. And they aren't addressing the base that's popular. The Bernie Sanders are the people that are getting crowds. The AOCs of the world are the ones that are really getting young people fired up. Kamala Harris, I see as nothing more than another, Hillary Clinton. She's already came out 2 days ago talking about how they're in a Harris-Biden administration. They will seek the democratic answer in Syria. So she wants to topple Assad. And in toppling Assad, this might not be well known to everybody, but Barack Obama was arming Al-Qaeda to attack Assad. So she's basically already came out and said, we're going to be hawks. And that is what really gets Washington going, because that's why a lot of people hate Donald Trump, is because Donald Trump has been very cautious about getting us into more conflicts. So the reason why your social justice cousin that thinks Trump is, you know, a racist Nazi or whatever, isn't the same reason why the CIA hates Donald Trump. You know, there's different avenues for this. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Kamala Harris called Joe Biden racist in the, like, one of the first primary debates, which is hilarious.
So I didn't even know that. Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, because Biden apparently opposed federal busing, and she was like, I was that little girl. You know, just hack. You know, the corporate press came out and, oh, she's a rising star. She's the future. So, like, you were talking about the corporate press earlier. One thing we have to understand that the corporate press is largely funded by the military-industrial complex and big pharma. So we're talking about the people that are giving us these fucked up pills that are making us kill ourselves and OD. And then the people that are building all these bombs that are sending our people to die in wars that they're making money off of. So being cynical, because being in politics you kind of have to be, there's a reason that these large, powerful institutions are behind Kamala Harris. It's not because, you know, sunshines and rainbows. It's more about power.
Right. And how was Kamala Harris their pawn to get that power if she didn't reflect a tremendous amount of popularity in the primaries? Why is she the choice?
Well, that's the thing. Because the truth of the matter is, you can change Overton windows within how the press manipulates the populace. So if they continuously, you know, it's the old, I can't remember his name, but the old guy that ran propaganda for the Nazis.
I know you're talking about.
Was it Grobbels or something like that? He always said, you say a lie enough, it becomes a truth. So, you know, if they keep putting out Kamala as like, you know, strong black woman that, you know, came up and now she's a president, like, hoorah, and that really gets people behind her.
Yeah.
They're basically trying to build the profile so that she can solidify her power.
I see, like how they built the profile trying to tear down Trump for these last 4 years.
Yeah.
Came out with the Russia collusion, which was completely baseless, spent 5 years and hundreds of millions of dollars on that phony witch hunt. Now, jump forward to 2020.
Okay.
How much more substance do you think that these current allegations have coming from the right against the left versus the 2016 high-profile allegations against the right?
Okay. So first of all, the 2016 stuff was based on opposition research. So Hillary Clinton paid somebody named Christopher Steele, who was actually a spy for British intelligence to Russia. And basically,
crooked Hillary working with a spy?
Yeah, I'm shocked, right?
Me too.
So basically what they did was they used a bunch of fake stories about one of the famous ones that BuzzFeed actually released, which I'm sure we all remember, was Trump likes to get peed on in hotels, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But Trump is also notoriously a fucking germaphobe, so that didn't really add up. But they really never found any proof of any of these claims. Like, you know, the only people, if you notice, that got charged and arrested on any of these Russia stuff was all lying to FBI or something like that. It was never actually concrete evidence of any type of collusion. And collusion isn't even necessarily a crime. Like, they didn't ever explain what that meant, right?
Right. You just heard collusion, Russia,
and
Russia,
they said
Russia.
it. What did they do? They said it over and over and over and over.
So where the substance doesn't even become relevant.
Right? So they never really addressed the issue. Now this time we have sworn affidavits, which, you know, is a sworn statement in a court of law that during a litigation is used as evidence.
And multiple. What is the total number of affidavits across the board? I know that there were over 10,000 independent reports that were submitted from all over these states in question, and I think it turned into like 500 or 600 sworn affidavits.
It's something like that,
which is quite significant.
I think it's like 40 something alone in Pennsylvania.
And it's a serious felony if you were to swear your name to that and it be complete bullshit.
It's perjury.
It's perjury.
Yeah. It's what Bill Clinton got impeached for.
And there's no way that, I mean, I wouldn't put it past a couple people to swear their name on an affidavit when it's legitimately baseless. But you have multiple thousand just average Joe people that really aren't excelling in life. They don't have, I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
Well, just everyday people, you know.
Exactly. They really can't afford to put themselves in that position where they could potentially lose everything. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. So you can have this huge stack of claims that says that they see activity that's fraudulent and there not be any kind of substance to that.
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's absolutely fire, and that seems to be like a shit ton of smoke in my opinion.
Yeah, that, and you have whistleblowers coming out. That one guy, Project Veritas, I don't know if anybody listening knows what that is, but
I do, but I haven't really listened to it myself.
So James O'Keefe is actually a guy that helped bring down Acorn, which is a community organizing organization that Barack Obama came from. So what he specializes in is undercover journalism. So for instance, how we brought down Acorn, this is pretty cynical, but this is beautiful at the same time. But so he dressed up as a pimp, and he brought in what was apparently an underage prostitute, and they went to Acorn and they tried.
Obama did this.
No, this is no. So Acorn.
I just looked at my phone. Yeah. I heard you say Obama then dresses a pimp.
Acorn. So it's an organization called Acorn. It's like a community organization. I don't remember the exact thing. This is like 12 years ago. This is
okay.
So it's a community organizing thing. So they went in there and they tried to work with Acorn to how to get federal money to bring underage prostitutes across the border.
You got South Park playing in the background.
Sorry. So he caught them on tape, giving them advice of how to, launder their money correctly to get federal funds. Okay. So the left hates James O'Keefe, but they hate him because he's effective. So when James O'Keefe has came out, he has had a whistleblower in Michigan come out and say that he had high-ranking USPS officials telling them to backlog ballots, throw ballots away, and he actually has about a 3-minute recording of a federal employee from the United States Postal Service intimidating him, telling you like, hey, I just want to let you know we're going to put some pressure on you if you come forward, all this stuff.
And there's multiple whistleblowers that are starting to come forward.
Yeah, but this is a whistleblower in a crazy sense that you have a federal employee on tape telling you like, hey, if you don't play games, like we're gonna come at you. Which is, in a court of law, that's like a lawyer's wet dream right there.
So, despite what the mainstream media says about there being not one sliver of evidence, we've already talked about the affidavits, we've talked about eyewitness reports. That sounds like to me that it has a lot of upstanding in the court of law. Is that correct? I don't know what else would they potentially need to advance these cases and get these counts overturned. I know Georgia's doing the hand recount. I'm not sure about the other states necessarily.
So Pennsylvania has done the state legislature. The state house in Pennsylvania is actually Republican controlled, and they're actually going to do a state legislative audit of all the votes. So this is really the thing, that we can't think that everything's going to work out or everything's going to not change. Like, states are going to implement this and it's going to take time. Rudy Giuliani has been on the forefront in Philly, bringing up a lawsuit that I think is like a statewide one. I'm not a fan of Rudy Giuliani being a Ron Paul guy. Ron Paul basically became what he was with attacking Rudy Giuliani for being a war hawk. Mm-hmm. But Rudy Giuliani is probably also, the United States' most successful prosecutor in modern time. He brought down the 5 families in New York. If anybody's ever seen Wall Street and Gordon Gekko, like, he was the one that basically destroyed that whole Wall Street shit too at the time. So just thinking that you don't like Rudy Giuliani because he's Republican, that's fine. You cannot like him, but he's a serious player. Mm-hmm. So, there's lawsuits going on. They're going to audit the votes. So in auditing the votes, they're going to break down, are there signatures? Does it have the correct postage? Does it have the correct timestamps? So that's when really we'll be able to, validate, were these true legal votes? Were there more than one coming from the same name, So it's going to be a pretty long process.
For sure. But talking about the votes, like these dumps that appeared at these ballot sites, are these legitimate votes that just arrived after the deadline, or were these votes that were meticulously sifted through and consolidated to Joe Biden?
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, I'm not on the ground there, so I can't give you a for sure answer. But
speculation.
Speculation. I mean, that's bullshit, man. Like, you don't just have tens of thousands of ballots show up at 4 a.m. 100%. You know, over. Was it Michigan? Was like 100,000 votes.
120,000. Not one of them was marked for Donald Trump.
All for Trump. You know, you have all of these ballots across these states. You know, there's like 450,000 that are only strictly top ticket votes, which normally does not come anywhere near even 100,000 votes in a normal election. So we're talking about like just some abnormalities that like don't add up at all. And I would like to ask anybody on the left, like, if red counties and swing states just closed down their polling locations and then mysteriously had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Trump ballots show up, and none of them for Biden, they lied to poll workers, kicked out Democrat poll watchers, and then we're just like, yep, all these votes, man, it switched the state. It's going Trump.
Cities would be fucking burning again, dude.
Like, would you not ask any fucking questions?
Oh, hell yeah. Man. Shit. I mean, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how fucking stupid do they think they are? Like, mathematically, it just doesn't add up. I absolutely believe that the majority of the mail-in votes would have been cast for Joe Biden, but you're telling me out of these multiple hundreds and hundreds of thousands that they're 100% for Joe Biden, that's just statistically impossible.
Yeah,
that's a statistic impossibility.
So, I mean, that's something, again, like with the audits and the recounts, we're really going to see how valid that is. And, I mean, it's also a big sign when you see things like the ACLU come out saying, like, oh, we're going to counter-sue the suit because they were trying to get rid of votes. Like, you know, if Joe Biden had this historic win, wouldn't you want to bask in it and dance on the graves of your enemies and be like, we just beat the shit out of you, Donald Trump, you know, like, yeah. No, they're not being transparent because they know. I think especially in this election with mail-in ballots, there's some fraud on all sides, or both sides, because the Libertarian Party's jokes. Except Shane Hazel, but that's another story.
Hey, y'all were supposed to be the culprit of this Biden. When I saw that headline that was released earlier this afternoon where it said that the key to Biden's victory in the swing states was the libertarian vote. Yeah. Logan, do you think that is the case at all?
I mean, dude, I'm not a libertarian party guy. I just believe in the philosophy of liberty, which could be another podcast, but... I mean, in the Senate race in Georgia, Shane Hazel definitely screwed over Perdue, for sure. I mean, he got over 100,000 votes, which, if he wasn't in that race, Perdue would have beat Ossoff easily. He would have got to over 50%. But Joe Jorgensen underperformed Gary Johnson this year. So really to think that, like, the LP really had a massive play in this, she barely broke 1 million votes. Yeah. You know, so like I don't think in the big scheme of it that it was really the LP.
They're just trying to find a legitimate explanation and put a legitimate blame that steers away from this accusations of fraud and these air quotes with the conspiracy theory of all these allegations, because that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to accuse anyone that believes in this fraud, that believes in these allegations, as crazy conspiracy theorists, and they try to minimize any kind of substance that we have on the matter. Now, with the ballots that came in, these phantom votes, do you think that these are all legitimate votes, or how many do you think are actually fabricated from dead people or reran or et cetera, et cetera?
That's got it. I'm not quite sure. I know in Georgia the margin is like 12,000, I think, for Biden. I know in Arizona it's similar. We still haven't had all the votes recorded yet. That's tough, but you know, when we're talking, you know, Fulton County, for example, tens and tens of thousands of votes just keep coming in from Fulton County. So if the margin is only roughly 12,000, and multiple of those things of ballots that are all coming in 90% Joe Biden or whatever, you know, 2 of them are invalid or not be able to verify, Trump wins the state. Pennsylvania is similar margins. So, I mean, really, it is overturning a lot of votes. Well, I wouldn't even call it overturning, because if they're not valid or legal votes, they shouldn't be counted.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can't have people voting twice. You can't have dead people voting. I have heard a lot of claims of dead votes in Pennsylvania. I haven't crunched the numbers or looked at any of that yet. Again, I'm kind of waiting for the audits and everything to happen, because then you can actually really see.
Right. To me, the affidavits right now are our only concrete source of evidence that could be passed in court. The allegations of the dead voters have been circulating all over social media, over right-wing outlets on the internet, but really haven't had any kind of substance backed up that I've seen personally. I could be totally wrong, but it looks like that right now isn't the strongest point of evidence that we have.
Well, I you know, you're probably right to an extent. I would just say that the Republican Party has brought in some people that are the not fucking around crew. And like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Rudy Giuliani, but that is not somebody that I want filing lawsuits against me.
Right.
So we'll see, you know, we'll see. Michigan seems like a toss-up too. You know, you got this whistleblower going on. James O'Keefe has brought down, you know, he's exposed Planned Parenthood for trade, you know, selling baby parts. So he's not somebody to really play with either. And one thing with Donald Trump that I think, you know, as somebody that's not a fan of him, but a more right-wing guy, like, one thing he's taught the right is how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that is something that, love him or hate him, you can't take away Trump's tenacity, his knack for really getting with people and taking off that filter. He doesn't give a fuck. He's not a career politician. He's not really, I mean, obviously his loyalists love him to death, but at the end of the day, he doesn't care about whether or not you like him or not. And there's something to be said for that.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, I think we get the Schoolhouse Rock view of government where, you know, oh, we're all here doing good things and we're working for you and we're civil servants and all that. Like, not really. You know, politics is war just by other means. You know, the state is a monopoly of violence. And when we're talking about political power, we're talking about how to adjudicate that violence and that power and that force. So, you know, that's kind of what I love to see. Trump just, like, not give a damn. Like, no, I'm not going to let you guys steal this from me. Because for so long, the Republicans have basically been the battered wives of politics. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't have enough women on my staff. That was Mitt Romney or John McCain. You know, I swear.
Fuck Mitt Romney and John McCain.
Fuck them both. Like, but it's like, oh, I swear I'm not a racist, man. It's like, dude, these people don't care about any of that. They're just trying to destroy you and your family. So you got to give them a big old middle finger, and you got to go about your business.
Hold that thought real quick. This section of the podcast is proudly sponsored by Jim Beam Bourbon.
Cheers, boys. Whew. That's a shot right there.
Creative juices flowing up in here.
Whew. Yeah, but you know, so that's what I love to see. I think the left deserves to lose this more than Trump necessarily deserves to win, but it's a zero-sum game, so you got to have one or the other. So I do think that Trump wins in a slim margin, and the left freaks out and burns things to the ground. And if Biden does win, you know, it's not the end of the world. Republicans, you know, you gain seats in the House. Mm-hmm. They're gaining seats in California, Orange County specifically, you know, so the tide might be turning.
So we have approximately 2 months of this sitting duck period where we can see all this start to pan out. We're seeing more and more information, numbers changing with every single passing day. How do you think these next 2 months look, and how do you think that this time frame will start to pan out? I mean, can you even put a time frame on it, or we just play it day by day?
Of the electoral process?
The electoral process, okay. The recounts, the audits.
So roughly, I think it is December 6th. That state legislators have to meet to vote on their electorates. So, I mean, this is...
So we should know by mid-December, tentatively?
Yeah, by December, mid-December. But this is the thing. If Secretary of States of these states like, you know, Pennsylvania are acting very sketchy, state legislators don't have to validate those votes and vote for electorates, which will throw a wrench in everything. Mm-hmm. So, there's so many things that could happen.
And if Trump, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this thought that just came up. So if Trump does win these cases state by state, who goes down on the other end?
Like who gets arrested? Or?
Yeah, who gets arrested, who gets indicted? Do we even know?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Is it individuals or is it a big umbrella covering all these states? Or is it a statewide, state by state?
I'm sure it's probably a little bit of a big umbrella.
Because
what state apparatuses, right? So like you have a party, you have the DNC of the whole country, and then you have the DNC of Pennsylvania, just with Georgia. You have the Republican Party, and then you have the Republican Party of Georgia. Some parties in each states are better at the game than others. In Pennsylvania, it's just notoriously known that Philly is, the grimy of the grimy. It's just known. Same with Chicago. Georgia Republican Party is kind of known for being a bunch of slapdicks. So when you see all this mass incompetence, they're a bunch of establishment hacks that a lot of them probably don't like Trump and would not hate to see him lose.
And that's why I do like Trump. I don't associate it with the establishment Republican Party, the GOP, the grand mighty GOP. I personally identify myself with a lot of libertarian beliefs, even though I wouldn't fully immerse myself with that label. But if I did have to side one, I call myself a conservatarian, taking ideologies of the right wing, but not fully wrapped up in a libertarian package. So I'm getting there with you. Maybe you take me on one of your campaigns and I'll be fully brought aboard, fully brainwashed on you. I'm just playing.
No, I think with most right-wing people our age, that's kind of similar. Most people our age don't really care about this. Like, I'm not a social conservative. That's one of my big things.
Nor am I. I am on probably half of the issues.
Again, like what I said earlier, I think there's some truth to both sides. I do think it is very important to have a strong family structure. I think that is the basis of civilization. And, I'm for drug legalization, but for drug legalization on the sense that, like, the state shouldn't necessarily tell you what you can and cannot consume.
Well, we got a nice little petri dish brewing up in the state of Oregon. How do you think that's going to pan out? That's going to be pretty interesting.
It'll be interesting, man. Like, Portugal did it like 10 years ago. They decriminalized all drugs, and they saw like a massive decline in ODs, usage, abuse.
Because people are going to do it either way. And I know it does bring money to the state for incarceration and seizing evidence and whatnot, but it also costs an enormous amount to incarcerate these people that might not necessarily be violent offenders. And that argument can go deeper and deeper and deeper. Probably a whole other episode, to be honest. Getting off topic a little bit, but it is going to be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah. Also, too, with America, like, I don't know if that's the best route because we're the most degenerate of the world. We eat the most, we drink the most, we do the most drugs, we spend the most money. Like, America is fucking amazing with how we just this is us and we don't give a damn. So, like, I don't know if our society can handle where we are now in 2020. I don't know if we could handle full-on legalization. Now, like heroin, if it's legal, am I going to go do it? No.
But the people that were already doing it before are still going to fucking do it.
Exactly.
That's kind of
I have friends in the ground that are dead from it, so like I know not to play that game. But would some random guy maybe try it? Possibly. Maybe. But also, I think the state, when you give them that power, man, they're going to abuse it every time. So,
I agree.
I know we're getting off kind of topic.
Oh, no, that's fine. There's really no, I said it from the pilot, there's no specific format of this podcast. I kind of want it to be a game of ping pong going back and forth, and sometimes the ball can bounce off the fucking table. But we are approaching the 40-minute point. Where are we at, Reed? 45? Okay, yeah, I think there's been a considerable amount of substance that we've discussed today. So before we close it out, you said earlier that you do think Trump narrowly wins. Now, If Trump
I
does,
said there's a possibility that he
Okay. Well, we'll speak hypothetically here.
Yeah.
We'll take that possibility of Trump winning and say that he does win a second term.
Okay.
What would Trump's second term look like? These 4 years panning out with the seats that are in the House right now, the way the Senate's looking, and Trump's agenda for his second term versus Joe Biden getting elected, being inaugurated in his 4 years with the Senate and the House. How does that look from both sides?
So for me, the big difference between Joe Biden and Trump, immediate action, because if Joe Biden doesn't have full-on majority in all three branches, he won't be able to do much. But the biggest thing that they can impact is trade and foreign policy. So I think Trump, there's a lot of mix-ups or changes right now. Mix-up isn't the right word, but changes going on within the DOD and the Pentagon, and it really looks like he's pulling our troops out of Afghanistan by Christmas, which would be huge.
And it's funny, everyone thought that when Trump won in 2016 that we were going to get into war with North Korea, with Russia, with China, all these conflicts, and he's the first president since Ronald Reagan that has not gotten us into a new foreign conflict. There's something to be said for that. I mean, him being cautious is honestly kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
So do you think he would continue that trend throughout his next 4
Yeah,
years?
like I think
those relationships
I think
with
at
Kim
that
Jong-un and
point,
Putin and-
I think at that point, if I were Trump, I would just double down, man. Like, you can't run for office again. So these bureaucrats that are embedded in the State Department, the DOD, the DOJ, if I was Trump, fuck them. Do your thing. Let them come out, be mad, fire them all, go about your business. Like, you have nothing to lose. In your second term, you literally, there's no political capital that you can't spend. You have to spend it all because there's no other time. So I would say Trump probably would be bolder on actions within foreign policy, declassifying a bunch of stuff from the FBI,
which is, I think, what everyone is really on the edge of their seat for.
I would love to see him pardon Snowden and Assange, which I think Trump sees that this embedded bureaucracy within our intelligence agencies are truly evil and hate him, and he has felt the hate from him. So, like, one lasting middle finger to him. As Trump being who Trump is, I can see him doing it. With Biden, you're gonna get a more of
unified country.
Yeah, apparently. You're gonna get a George W. Bush, man. Like, you're gonna get a big government, kind of more conservative guy. He's conservative in like social term. Like, Joe Biden is not some radical lib that they try to praise.
He's not Bernie Sanders.
No, he's not.
But the people behind him are.
Some of them, yes. Some of them are. So this is the thing within the Democratic Party. There's a huge split between the like corporate Nancy Pelosi Democrats and the AOCs. When AOC talks about microaggressions and her pronouns, she cares about that. That's important to her. When somebody like Nancy Pelosi does it, she doesn't give a shit. She's a power broker. She's doing this for power because she thinks her base likes it. Same with Kamala Harris. Like, when she has her pronouns in her bio, do you think Kamala Harris, and there's any question that she's not a, she, her, or whatever the fuck they do it? So these people, there's like a split between the ideologues and then the real players in the game. And the Democratic Party is going to have to go through a civil war. The Republican Party had the Tea Party, where, they took the House back, they kicked out the Speaker, they went after their own party. And after Trump, if he wins or loses, that's still going to have to happen on that side. But like, the Democratic Party has been prolonging it. And, one thing my mom always taught me was like, you can keep pushing an issue away, but if the longer that you prolong that, it's going to get worse. So I don't see them really pushing the AOC confronting, the Chuck Schumers of the world.
So you don't think we would see you think we would see the new Green Deal and some of these packages that they're talking about bringing to the table?
With such a slim margin in the House, such a slim margin in the Senate, like if Georgia goes red in the Senate, the two Senate races, and this House holds as it is, Joe Biden, like, he would ruin the hopes of any national prominence for that party. Because you can't tell all these states that are making money off fracking, they can't frack anymore. You're going to lose tens of thousands of jobs across the country. Yeah. So, it's a national electorate. It's going to be a tough sell, and the thing with the ideological, like, progressives is that they don't necessarily think tactically about it. They just we need, gender bathrooms right now. That's the most important thing facing America. And it's just at the end of the day, it's really not, but they can't see that way. And it's going to be interesting, man. The times are coming where the DNC is going to have that confrontation, and it's going to be beautiful to watch.
I agree. And I'm going to shift thoughts real quick because I want to wrap it up here in a little bit. But to close, I want to talk about the scamdemic. Hoax 19, the coronavirus, the China
Coronavirus!
All right, so how do you think, well, obviously we just got a magical vaccine that just appeared several days after the election. How do you think this vaccine is going to pan out, the timing of that vaccine, and if we're going to really even hear about the scamdemic over these next few weeks?
Trump did say, and I think it was the first debate, it'd be coming within a month.
He did, but I feel like they're weaseling it in a position to somehow give Biden the credit for it, because Trump was talking about that. The time frame does add up to what Trump was saying.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm not fucking taking that vaccine.
Me neither.
This is the thing. The left has this. For people that hate the system and the man and everything, like they say, they have a very hierarchical view of the world. We trust experts, we trust science, and you're okay, well, what does that really mean? And they're we trust the experts of science, and you're you still aren't really answering my question here. I don't know, man. I'm not taking it. I don't really trust a vaccine that came out this quick. Normally vaccines have to go through years of trials. So I'm gonna be chilling on that one. Cuomo's already coming out and saying we can't get it out in 2 months because then Trump will take credit for it. So there's definitely that narrative.
Fuck Cuomo, man.
Yeah, King Cuomo. There's definitely that narrative going on that if it is successful, we gotta do it because we can't let it happen because then Trump gets some credibility.
Right.
So
before I went live, even I saw there was a headline that said that Ticketmaster is making it mandatory that to attend any kind of concert that you have to either test negative for COVID-19 or take the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And the last part of that kind of caught my attention. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you don't have this vaccine, you can't go to a concert before it's even been administered, before it's even been tested on a wide base of people, before we really even know how it's going to pan out, the results of it. And they're already trying to use it as an angle to control people, which I figured was going to happen. And do you suspect that happening more? I think it will happen more and more if Biden keeps his position. If Trump does, I think there will still be some of that, but I think that vaccine is going to be used as a wedge
it's a technocratic way to bring in the social credit score that China has. You can't go certain places in China if you don't have, enough performance or enough credit within their system. So, I definitely see that. We already saw it with masks. Hey, you can't come in here if you don't have a mask. And you're well, you realize that they don't help you,
And that lasted for 8 fucking months. People
it's still
are just
going on.
It is, but people are a little bit kind of starting to wake up a little bit. You're starting to see less and less masks, but I see masks all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
People still driving in their car with their mask on, the windows up and shit.
Yeah. So, I definitely see it. That might have to be another episode of the technocratic rule that's going to come from this.
Oh no, man! Yeah, that would be a great other. Also, we could incorporate that with the laws of society. How every edge of society views these things, what their source of information is, and how do they react to it. There's a lot of other shit that we can talk about intertwining.
Live free or die, man. At the end of the day, we make choices every day that could kill us, and if you're gonna live in fear and let society shake and crumble and you're not able to see your grandfather while he's dying or go to his funeral because of a virus with a 99.68% or whatever the fuck it is at this point survival rate, dude, that's just cowards. And our ancestors that had to, hunt down buffalo and, sail across an ocean and not necessarily know where they were going. There were so many brave people before us that did incredible things that we can't even fathom. And if you're afraid of a virus with a 99% survival rate,
fuck you.
to go to Walmart, like, you're really disgracing the people that gave you what you have.
I could not agree more. Honestly, this could, the fallout and the coverage of COVID could be an episode by itself. But honestly, I got to piss like a motherfucker, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. Logan, this has been a tremendous discussion. I think that we've covered a lot from all across the board. And it's going to be extremely interesting to see how these next few weeks pan out.
Yeah.
And if these events actually come to pass. It's hard to speak on things that aren't set in stone. We can only speculate.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure, but we're going to learn more and more with y'all as these events pan out. So this might make for another follow-up episode of The Quack, or we could end up shifting to another topic. I really have no game plan for future episodes. We'll be thinking about it as we move on, but I'm looking forward to some of the next topics that we'll be discussing. Logan, you'll definitely be a contributor in the future. I've enjoyed this. I think that it's been productive and people will get something out of it.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could take a couple shots of Jimmy Beam. And, maybe when I get back from DC in a couple weeks, we can have it more set in stone and we can break it down and
actually have a structure, maybe, or a format.
Because at this point, everything's breaking down and we don't really know. So maybe in a couple weeks we can come back and really look at
and follow up. For sure.
So what the fuck has actually happened?
Well, we'll talk. Ducklings, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful ride. Stay tuned for episode number 2. Details will be coming soon. God bless America.